Hi everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today I have like a quick tip video to share with you where we're just going to talk about white paint versus white gouache. This is not going to be a full tutorial, but more just kind of showing you the difference between the two mediums and why I have been using white gouache more than white paint for my splatter lately. So I am going to start by stamping this Wood Planks Simon Says Stamp background stamp on smooth white cardstock using some Pawsitively saturated ink in the color MOCHA, and then we're going to ink blend over the top of this. This is how I typically create a background, or at least one example. There's usually either stenciling or stamping or ink blending. This is going to kind of incorporate a couple of those techniques. I also want to mention that this tutorial or little quick tip video comes from my Patreon live from February. We created cards with this particular background and I used white gouache to color in, or pardon, not color in, to splatter the background. And because of that, I got the question posed, what is the difference, or why are you using white gouache rather than white paint? And then I also received that same question in another video, and I thought it would be really fun to show the difference. I'm simply taking some latte colored Pawsitively saturated ink and I'm coloring or ink blending right over the top of my stamped background. Now, this is something I showed in the Patreon live. This is one of my very favorite ways to create my own wood grain background, and wood grain does happen to be probably my top favorite way to, or background to add splatter to. I love wood grain. I love it in any color combination that it comes in. And so I really wanted to focus on something I would actually use and show you how different the two mediums are. I will tell you, I will use both of the backgrounds I create. There is not one that is better than the other. There is only a little bit of difference in maybe the color that seeps through the paint rather than the gouache. Gouache tends to sit like up on top of the background and it really shows bright white rather than the paint, which tends to seep down into the cardstock a bit and it'll pick up the color, especially if you've ink blended. If you're going to splatter on top of, you know, a cardstock, you might not get so much of that. But I tend to find this is how I use it the most, and so that's kind of what I'm going to be showing. After I take latte, I am going back to mocha and I'm ink blending a little bit more of that color, which is the color I stamped with, but you can see how it just gives a beautiful wood grain looking background. So that is the background. I am going to grab two backgrounds now and we are going to splatter them. Excuse me. This background was created earlier. It does have some stamped text on it, sentiments, but it is the exact same background created the same way. I am taking the white gouache and I am going to add like one little squirt of water, just enough to make it move and allow it to splatter all over the background. So I'm using a small tip paintbrush and I am tapping it along the edge of my plastic box that I use for splatter. And we're going to tap this all over and allow this to completely dry. Now, the thing that is the same between gouache and white paint is that when you initially apply it, they both look pretty bright white. The difference is gouache is going to sit up on top of that background and it never changes. It doesn't pick up the color of the brown underneath, and it is going to retain that white property from your first application, I guess I want to say. So I'm going to set that one aside. We're going to clean our paintbrush. And now I have some white Picket Fence Distress paint. This is what I use so that anytime I have done white splatter before, so that's what I wanted to use now. Again, I'm going to pick up a little of this and I'm going to try to tap it. I wanted to show you, it's a little thick. I can get a couple of splatters. Those are going to be the bigger splatters. They also will retain the most white, but I find it really hard to move. So just like the gouache, I added one squirt of water And then I'm going to tap this off. Some of my initial splatters were a little bit bigger. I don't know that that's a difference in the medium at all. I think it's just there was more paint maybe on the brush. But I'm going to tap this all around. So right now, it definitely still maintains that super white property. And I know I mentioned this, but even though this background is a little more muted, especially in real life, I can't tell you how many photos I took of these two backgrounds trying to show the difference. It's really hard to capture it on camera or film. In real life, you can see the brown seeping through it a little bit more. I just couldn't get that really on camera. So there's what they look like. Both of them are pretty wet still. I'm going to come back after they have dried, but I will be using both backgrounds. So I'm going to hold these up to the camera. And you can especially see in some of the smaller splatters, I think, and maybe right there you can see in some of the bigger droplets, they look a little tan because some of that brown has absorbed up into the distress paint and how the gouache really is white. Maybe you can see it there a little bit. It's not a huge difference, you guys. There's not one that's better than the other. I just wanted to kind of show you my thought process, why I use one more than the other, but truly, either one is going to give you beautiful results. It's just if you really want that bright white, I would highly suggest some gouache. So thank you guys for joining me for this quick tip video. I have linked what I use down in the description box below. I want to give a thank you to my Patreon members. Thank you guys for the original question during our Patreon live in February. If you would like to become a member of Patreon, you can click the link in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new card making or quick tips video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.